I'm Corbett Wall with DVAuction, here with your feeder flash for Wednesday, March the 27th, brought to you in part by VITALIX. Not all tubs are created equal. Stretch your profits with every lick. We've been talking about this. There's now a free tub giveaway. Click on the link below there. Get the blue tub. Your cows will love you. Go to vitalix.com. Everybody's getting rich. That's what other people outside the cattle industry are thinking as they look at the cattle industry, or they look at the price of beef or whatever. They think everybody's getting rich that's in the cattle and the beef industry. And I figure I haven't pissed anybody off for a couple of weeks here. I hate to get these reports too boring, so figure I better run out there and see how many toes I can step on. But not everybody's getting rich here. And what we're starting to see now with these record prices, and even the town drunk knows that we're at record prices on cattle now, and now we're starting to see jealousy and greed stir in here. So we know that avian influenza come out, and we talked about it on our last visit. If you want to talk or listen more about that, go to the previous feeder flash, and you can hear more about the avian influenza that has been discovered in some older dairy cows in Texas and Kansas. But the hell of it is, we've kind of known about that for a while. Those of us that kind of stay up to date on what's going on, I've known about this for a couple of weeks. Now, we didn't know it was the avian influenza, but we knew it was something bad, and whatever it wasn't going to be good whenever it come out. But a lot of people kind of known about this for a while. And then it came out on Monday afternoon. Didn't really stir that much. Didn't get picked up by a lot of news media there. So we thought, well, maybe we got by this thing. And then Tuesday, all of a sudden, jealousy and greed from your funds and your board traders. They thought, hey, you know, we can't keep letting these black swans go by. You know, we had the plant fire in Liberal, Kansas there. We didn't do anything with that. And we've had a couple other little things that's kind of stirred up, you know. Cattle on Feed report was bearish, and we took it a little bit down on Monday. But let's don't let another one of these go without taking advantage of it. So then here we see it come on Tuesday, after it had been out, you know, for nearly a whole day, and most people within the industry had known about it for at least 10 days, probably 2 weeks. They decide, oh my gosh, this is a big deal, and we need to take this thing down. And let's take it down hard, even though it has been fully understood that the avian influenza outbreak in a handful of old dairy cows in Texas and Kansas has nothing to do with the safety and security of the milk people are drinking, has nothing to do with the safety and security of the beef if those cows did go to slaughter. So it's a complete moot issue there. What the hell, let's go ahead and take this thing down. And boy, did they. I mean, took her down. The only thing that they wish they could have done, I wish they weren't so close to maturity on the spot months, because they could have took them down further. But you know, they have to stay tied pretty close to cash here, especially March feeder cattle, and we're getting right at the end of that. So, you know, it's hard to dump it anymore. They already took it to nearly a $3 discount to what the cash is doing. But it's just frustrating, because as we've been getting to these all-time record prices in your cash, all classes of cash cattle, your board's been up there extreme highs with us too, and those that play the board, your fund managers, those that take advantage of shallow contracts on a publicly traded market like cattle, they cannot wait to take this thing down. They have been chomping at the bit to take this thing down. They're the only ones that feel like they're not making any money if we're not extremely volatile. And we've been trading within that narrow high range here for months. and they're ready to make some money. Of course, they can make money going down, going up. They don't care, and they don't care what it does to those within the industry that they're taking advantage of. So, what the hell? Let's call it a black swan. Let's take it down. And it's unbelievable, and we're even seeing that in our cash trade and our grassroots type things too. We've seen the administration of one of our biggest high volume cattle markets. The administration decided that, hey, let's get more yardage here. We're not, everybody else is making money but us. All these cattle people that we've been making money on the backs of, they're making big money now. Let's get a little more yardage out of them. And then the other guys that are out there dealing with those struggling producers and trying to solicit cattle from them, they just cut their legs out, didn't tell them anything about it, and then just leave them high and dry in a very, very competitive business there. And then we've seen also on our biggest places where you turn cattle out, in our largest grazing areas, of course the Flint Hills and the Osage and places like that, some of these landlords and those that manage the leasing of those pastures, they're thinking, oh my gosh, look at these guys. Oh, they're making so much money here. I think we should up our rent on this on these grazing pastures here. So they completely go in there and completely take all the opportunity out of that. There's some of these landlords of these major grazing areas, which some of them charge different. Some of them charge on the gain. They can take the fun out of it on the gain, which they've done that way over, $1.50 a pound now that our pounds are getting so higher. But for the most part out there, they charge so much a head for the 90 days that you get out there. So you got all that freight and getting the cattle ready. You get to go out there for 90 days and then you come off. And it's great grazing there. And it used to be a cheap way to put some really valuable pounds on some of these lighter weight yearlings. And we've never seen it over $100 a head for 90 days until last year. Last year, a market started coming around. They got a little bit higher. Those guys got to thinking that they were missing out. So, it was around $75 forever. $75 a head for 90 days out there. That seemed like enough. And then it got up there around $100 or a little over $100 there a head for 90 days. No, this time they come out and they decided, several of them decided, I think we'd like to have $165 a head for 90 days of grazing. Are you kidding me? That's ridiculous. And then doing that to customers that have been bringing them cattle year after year after year and losing big money in most instances. But now they want $165. And I've talked to several grazers that have been asked that. And most of them are telling them to say, you know what? You buy some of these high dollar stockers and you turn them out there and see how you get along. Others telling them, you know what? I can just feed them right here in this pen and I know where they're at and I can do it that cheap. And you guys just go ahead and take that if that's what you want to do. And then there's other guys that's come in there and they've been wanting the opportunity to get some of that grazing land for a long time, and they're snatching it up even though they know they're not going to make any money out there at that kind of a price. But it's just unfortunate that jealousy and greed are wanting to leap on the backs of the cattle people, our backgrounders and producers and things like that. And the hell of it is, I hate to tell them, and maybe they don't know, there ain't no money in cattle. And you guys are saying, whoa, what are you talking about here? Whoa, there ain't no money in cattle. There ain't no easy big money in cattle. Of course, there's some money there if you want to put a lot of work into it. There's money in picking up beer cans in the bar ditch too. But sometimes the amount of work that you have to put into it and the payoff you get is not that great. That's kind of the way the cattle business is. Go back and look over the last 30 years of being a cow-calf producer, of being a backgrounder, or being a cattle feeder. and look at the profit potential there, and the vulnerability you have to a big loss. It's a piss poor investment. And those of you that do it completely understand what I'm talking about. But it looks so good to other people. Everybody's looking out there. It's like somebody walking into a casino and they see somebody there with big stacks of chips, and then they come out of the casino and say, well, that guy's in there getting rich gambling. Well, anybody that's ever gambled knows that he's not getting rich gambling. Now, there may be some opportunities for him there if he has some luck and he has some timing and he's got the balls to risk a lot of money. He could make some money there, but a lot of times he's not going to. You guys are thinking, well, what do you know about it? You know, I grew up in the cattle business. I grew up trailer house poor. I'm not making fun of anybody. I was right there. Grew up trailer house poor. That's all we did was the cattle business. Both of my grandparents, that's all they did. Both sides, that's all they did. One struggled on a sandy ranch between Clayton and Narragansett. The other one struggled leasing ranches and running cattle after he got out of the sale barn business in Clayton. But you know, my dad, all he did was run cattle. I spent my life as a young fella straightening up high-risk cattle, either to peddle to somebody else or for us to turn out. And more times than not, we felt like we'd have been better off if we hadn't have turned cattle out. If we would have just marketed cattle or just traded on cattle. Most of the time we would have been better off because we didn't own the land. Now, if you've got land, there's money in land. If you decide to harvest the money out of that land through cattle, well, then it may appear that there's money in cattle. You know, if there's the only other ways there are money in cattle, there's money in marketing of cattle, there's money in commission of cattle, there's money in selling cattle products, things like that. But yeah, if you've got land, you know, you can turn cattle out there, and you're harvesting the grass for the most part. You may be harvesting the wheat or corn stalks or whatever, but you can harvest some grass or some kind of forage off of your land through cattle. And if you've got a lot of land, yeah, but you don't need cattle to be a big dog if you've got land. There's lots of ways to harvest money off land. You can charge people to come hunt on it. You can lease it to people and let them try their hand at turning cattle out. You can put windmills up. You know, if you get really lucky, you might strike oil on it, or now I guess you can put solar panels up all over the thing and then maybe get money out of that. But just strictly running cattle, producing cattle, feeding cattle, year in, year out. Once in a while you hit a big lick. Once in a while you'll lose a big lick, and then a lot of years in between it's kind of a wash, and it's a lot of work, and it's a big investment. You know, whenever I was a younger man and finally got settled and started putting some roots down in northern Missouri, man, I could not wait to run cattle of my own. And I did it for 15 years. And every year I ran more cattle than I did the year before. And was working harder at that than I was at the job that paid most of our bills. And you know, and I hit a really good market in there, and I hit a really bad market in 2014. I hit a home run and made way more money on the few cattle that I could turn out in my spare time than I did going to work every day. The very next year I lost most of it back. You guys have been in that. But it's, you know, if you've got good luck and you've got good timing and you really, really work hard at it, you can scrape out a living. But there's not big, easy money in cattle. And people look at it and they think that it looks really romantic. Well, maybe it is. And that's why we do it, is because we absolutely love it. I mean, we absolutely love it. You know, as I've become more busy here working with DVAuction, and I'm traveling all the time, you know, most of what I can think of is, man, I can't wait till I'm not traveling quite so much, and I can figure out a way where I can start running some cattle again. But it really doesn't make that much money. It doesn't make any difference in how you live. You know, I did it for 15 years. I wasn't any richer or any poorer. I had acquired some stuff. I had some wore out goosenecks and wore out big four-wheeler and a bunch of equipment and stuff like that, but that's really it. If you guys are honest with yourselves, you kind of know that, but we do it because we love it. But it's just frustrating that people on the outside looking in at cattle production, they think, oh my God, look at all that money they're making over there. How can we glean some of that money off of them? It's unfortunate. But let's look at the board that they tanked because of our latest black swan, this avian flu that doesn't affect anything when it comes to cattle production or even beef. Because they're not going to be putting a bunch of cows on the market. The cows recover from it. So, you know, it's very frustrating. Look at your April live cattle futures down 310 for no reason at 183.10, and your latest established market was 189.5. And that was just Thursday, guys. Give me a break. June live cattle down 322 at 178.37. Your back months down 287 to 355. March feeder cattle down 172 at 247.72. Your latest CME cash feeder cattle index was 251.63, and we've got just a couple of days left here, guys. April feeder cattle down $5 at 245.45. Your back months down 4.5 to 537. Give me a break. May corn down 5 1/4 cents a bushel at 432.5. May beans down 10 1/4 at 11.99. May Kansas City hard red winter wheat down 12 1/4 at 577 1/4. Fat cattle trading, not much, but we did see some weak sisters bail out. And if you think there's not a lot of fear swirling around here with the board and all this, and it really wasn't that big of a deal in the media. It was mostly just on the board, and you would have thought, man, that would have been on the front cover of every page. But you know, the Baltimore Bridge collapse couldn't save us. Puff Daddy couldn't save us. It really wasn't that much media. It's just your funds. And your traders decided to tank the board. Well, it stirs a lot of fear up. And you know, I didn't even mention March milk was actually down 1 penny, and all the back months were up. Unbelievable. How about Iowa? They sold 200. Somebody sold 200 at 189 delivered when the market is 190 to 191 FOB. 200 head in Kansas sold at 184. That would be $4 less than they sold 4 days ago. Texas sold 100 at 184. But then you go to a competitive auction market where people bid against one another in competitive bidding and negotiated trade at Stockman's Livestock Market in Yankton, South Dakota. I wish they'd had a bigger run, but they had a snowstorm up there, spring snowstorm, curbed receipts big time. They only had 650 head, and that included a pretty decent run of cows and bulls there. But your conventional fat cattle in Yankton were not well tested. They did have a higher undertone. Drug-free cattle were not well tested. Non-implanted cattle, which I guess you could consider program, but a lot of the cattle that come to the sale there at Yankton are non-implanted. But they sold really well from 187 to 196 1/4. That 196 1/4 was on 147 head of mostly prime black and black baldy heifers. That would be $3 higher than some similar cattle a week before. There, that shows you the frustration of this industry. I don't know what the rest of you guys are going to do that's got fat cattle to sell this week. If you got cattle on the show list that you need to get rid of, are you just going to puke them because they decided to take the board down? Nothing fundamentally has changed in the last 3 or 4 days, I promise you. But I would love to see people consign those fat cattle to an auction, consign them to the Fed Cattle Exchange online marketing platform, consign them to consolidated beef producers, consign them to Producers of Omaha, somebody that puts the cattle together and tries to get some leverage in the trade. But that's likely not to happen because the packer retaliation is real, people. Box beef cutout values were mixed. Choice cuts up 20 cents at $311.09. Selects down 170 at $300.26. Your slaughter was decent, 243,000 through the first 2 days of the week. That's 1,000 more than last week, 7,000 less than the same week a year ago. Did see a fancy cow and bull market, and so even though we're thinking that they might be selling more of those milk cows, it's not going to hurt our boneless beef market at all. Heard late on Tuesday that Knoxville Regional Livestock Auction in Knoxville, Iowa, sold a big bull, weighed 22.15 for $155.50 with competitive auction market trade right there, guys. Talk about what else is going on. Legend Bank. If you're looking for fast and efficient cattle financing, go to Legend Bank. Get a hold of Greg Brooks or Ricky Taylor. They are the top cattle lenders in North Texas, but they can help you in all of Texas and all of Oklahoma. Get a hold of them there at Legend Bank. Remember, Legend Bank is a member of FDIC. All loans are subject to credit approval, and they are an equal housing lender. Talk about your feeder cattle markets, your real-time index on DVAuction late in the day on Tuesday, based on an average, or a 7-day moving average of your cash auction 800-pound steers, basically from 700 all the way to 899. And that 7-day moving average on your RTI was 250.53, including Tuesday trade, which was much lower, and that was down 288. Set the 7-day moving average, guys, down nearly $3 with just all this swirl here. Like I mentioned, your last CME cash feeder cattle index was 251.63. Talk about your big sales on Tuesday. Didn't have too many big sales. There was weather moving across. That curbed receipts in a lot of places. Ozarks Regional Stockyard in West Plains, Missouri. They had rain there, about 3 inches in places close around there. That curbed their receipts back to 1,800 through the ring. Another 700 through their on their in-house video they do with DVAuction help there. The feeders were not well tested, those going right into the feed yard, but did have a lower undertone. Steered heifer calves sold $3 to $6 lower. Now, Beaver County Stockyards had a pretty good sale there. Their receipts were curbed due to snow in Oklahoma Panhandle. But I tell you what, all this stir about this bird flu in a dairy, a few older dairy cows took a toll. Now, they probably had more 8-weight steers than any auction in the country on Tuesday. They had 962 8-weight steers in Beaver, Oklahoma. They averaged 832 pounds with a weighted average price of $236.64. It doesn't sound too bad, but that was $7 lower than last week. Somebody ought to have to pay for that instead of taking advantage of it. But they did also sell a load of red steers, weighed 792. That's pretty close to the 800-pound button there at 250.5, and that's exactly what your real-time index is. Denny Rezac Livestock Commission in St. Mary's, Kansas, probably had more 9-weight cattle than they had anywhere else. They had 324 head of 9-weight steers in St. Mary's, Kansas. They averaged 926 pounds with a weighted average price of $224.85. That's very respectable. It's $4 lower than last week just because of this black swan. But they had 62 steers, weighed 803 pounds, pretty close to that 800-pound button there, bring 256. Very respectable there at Denny Rezac Livestock Commission. How about some other sales around? How about Tato Medina down at Santa Teresa Livestock Auction in New Mexico? He had another sale on Tuesday after having that big sale last Friday. He didn't want to have a sale on Good Friday, but he sold 65 Mexican steers, weighed 581 at $298. That would be higher than what he sold last Friday. How about Producers Livestock in Salina, Utah? We don't talk about them all the time. They sold 88 steers, weighed 550 at 326. Wow. But the most impressive quote that I saw anywhere on Tuesday, your Macrocin, no BS, top quote for the day was in Fredonia, Kansas at Fredonia Livestock Auction. They sell 77 steers, weighed 704 at 285.75. And that's your feeder flash for Wednesday.